We've been married for 3 years and we both work. Almost a month ago, she told me that we're spending too much money buying food for lunch at work, and in order to save more money, she will begin to cook. That lasted 2 weeks, but then she began to skip days because she was too exhausted from work. I understood that, and I was the one who began to make lunch for both of us. Normally, I wake up at 6 a.m. to prepare for work, but I began to wake up at 5 a.m. to have time for cooking. Yesterday, she woke up in a bad mood. She saw me cooking, almost finishing it, and tasted the roasted meat. She said it was gross. Her exact words were, "It never tastes good, but this time it actually tastes disgusting. Don't make lunch for me." It actually hurt me since she never had any objections before. Even when I asked for ideas to improve, she just said, "It's delicious," or "It's indeed good, actually better than mine." I, of course, didn't say anything since we had to prepare for work, but I took her food container with me since I didn't want the food to go to waste. I don't feel good when we have to throw food in the garbage, so I was planning to eat my lunch as normal and hers as dinner, since I was planning to work extra hours yesterday so that the food wouldn't go to waste. The thing is, I have a coworker who didn't bring her food to work yesterday. As far as I know, she always cooks for herself, but she arrived late at work and without her lunchbox. Then she began to ask anyone in our area if someone could sell her our lunch. In my workplace, it's normal for people to sell their lunch to others and use the money to eat outside. The common thing is for men to sell the food their wives cook for them. I decided to give her the extra food container I had. She was glad and thanked me. At the end of the day, when she returned the empty container already cleaned, she said that it was delicious, that I'm lucky to have a wife with good taste in cooking, and then she paid me. I laughed internally since I was the one who made that food, and I actually felt a little better. Much better, actually. I was still hurt, so I teared up a little, but I controlled it since I was at work. When I returned home, my wife asked me what happened with her food. I told her the truth, that I sold it, and now we have enough money to cover an extra day of transportation. I was seeing the good side of this, actually. I suppose I should have lied. She got really mad. She said I had no right to do it, that it was her food in the first place, that maybe I used it to flirt with my coworker. And now she doesn't talk to me. She hasn't spoken to me since then until now. I'm not expecting her to apologize, actually, but I don't think I did anything wrong, nor am I a jerk, as she said. So am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Personally, I wouldn't prepare lunch for somebody who disrespected my cooking like that, but that's me. Your wife is a real piece of work. She would be just as pissed if she came home and you had eaten it. At the point that she said it was disgusting and that she didn't want it, she no longer held claim to it. Comment 2, not the idiot. In my work, it is normal for people to sell their lunch to others, and with that money to go eat outside. The common thing is that men sell the food their housewives cook for them. But WTF? This is some elementary school cafeteria stuff. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. I never expected it to blow up like it did. Here's what's happened since then. 3 days ago, my wife and I had a huge fight over the lunch situation. Remember how she got mad at me for selling her lunch to a coworker? Well, things escalated quickly from there. She's been giving me the silent treatment ever since, and it's been really tense at home. But let me back up a bit and fill you in on some history that might help explain things. My wife has always been the type to take control, especially when it comes to our finances. She's the one who suggested we start cooking at home to save money. I was on board with it because, honestly, her cooking was amazing. Or at least, that's what I thought until she started getting tired and the quality dropped. Now, I'm not a chef, but I've always enjoyed cooking. It was something my mom taught me when I was a kid. She used to say, cooking is like love. It should be entered into with abandon, or not at all. So when my wife started skipping days, I took over without a second thought. I wanted to help out and make sure we were still saving money. Fast forward to the day of the fight. After she accused me of using the lunch to flirt with my coworker, things got really heated. She brought up old arguments, things I thought we had moved past. Like the time I forgot our anniversary because of a big project at work. Or the time she thought I was too friendly with a female friend from college who had come to visit. I tried to defend myself, saying that selling the lunch was just me being practical. But she wouldn't listen. She even brought up the fact that I had been working late a lot recently, which was true. I had been putting in extra hours to save up for a surprise anniversary trip for us. I hadn't told her because I wanted it to be a surprise, but now it was all coming out in the worst way. The next day at work, things got even more complicated. The coworker who had bought the lunch from me, let's call her Sarah, came up to me and thanked me again. She said she had been having a rough time because her boyfriend had just broken up with her, and that my home-cooked meal had been a bright spot in her day. I felt bad for her, but I also felt a little uncomfortable. I didn't want my wife to think there was anything going on between Sarah and me. But before I could say anything, Sarah handed me another couple of dollars. She said she felt like she hadn't paid enough for such a good meal. I tried to refuse, but she insisted. So now I had more money from the lunch I wasn't supposed to sell in the first place. I was starting to feel like I was in a sitcom or something, with one misunderstanding piling on top of another. When I got home that night, my wife was still not talking to me. I decided to try and break the ice by cooking her favorite meal. I spent hours in the kitchen, trying to get everything just right. But when I presented it to her, she just looked at it and said she wasn't hungry. I was crushed. I had put so much effort into trying to make things right, and it felt like she didn't even care. I ended up eating alone, feeling more isolated than ever. The following day, I woke up to find that my wife had left early for work without saying a word to me. I went to work feeling pretty low. But then, something unexpected happened. Sarah approached me and apologized. She said she had heard from another coworker about the fight with my wife and felt terrible about it. She handed me an envelope and said she hoped it would help make things right. Inside was a gift card for a fancy restaurant in town, enough for a nice dinner for two. She said she wanted me and my wife to have a night out on her, no strings attached. I was stunned. It was such a kind gesture, and it came from such an unexpected place. I started to think that maybe this could be the thing that would help my wife and I move past all this. When I got home, I told my wife about the gift card. I could see she was surprised, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old warmth in her eyes. But then she shook her head and said she needed time to think. My mom agrees to my move-in terms, then sponsors teens. I oppose, so I find my own place. But when she falls ill, I delay plans to care for her and face a tough talk post-surgery. I, 27, am currently going through the world's slowest divorce. At least that's what it feels like. I left my marital home and moved back to my home state into a studio apartment. My lease is almost up, so I toured apartments with my parents. My dad's a realtor, and my mom came to the conclusion that I should move back in with her and pay her rent since she needed the help. I agreed with a few conditions. I told my mom one of the conditions is that I will not share a bathroom with anyone. I do not want people touching my food. I need quiet since I work from home. I live in a high cost of living area where my studio runs me about $1,850 plus utilities. Now, I would pay $1,200 a month to my mom towards utilities and her mortgage, on top of my attorney fees, car payment, and just everyday bills that my soon-to-be ex, STBX, isn't legally mandated to cover. She recently let it slip while on the phone that she applied to sponsor 2 of her friends' teenage boys through a visa program. These boys have 2 living parents who do well enough where they vacation 3 months out of the year. They own their own business, the kids go to private school, have guards, a nanny, a full cleaning staff, and more. Their parents want them to come to the States to have a better opportunity. When I heard this, I let her finish her conversation and asked if she really applied for them to come here. She said yes. I phoned my dad and asked him if there was a unit available in the complex I originally liked. I told her that if she chooses to do this, I will not be moving in, nor providing financial support. She can't afford to not have me, since her medical condition has caused her to cut back on hours. These kids used to spend summers with us, and I genuinely wanted to pull my hair out every day they were here. My aunts and uncles wouldn't allow their kids to visit when they were here. They got my mom kicked out of establishments and family parties because they lack manners and refuse to clean up after themselves. I'm talking about a 14-year-old that won't lift the seat to pee and leaves the mess there. I refused to live with 2 teenage boys. I barely survived living with my brother and his mess. I started packing, and now she's saying that I'm being selfish after she took me in after a failed marriage, that I would choose my own comfort over 2 kids' futures. I've spoken with my dad, and I qualify for the apartment, and I should be able to move in by April. I've even spoken to my STBX husband about me moving out, and he asked if I would be willing to take over his lease, since he wants to move back aboard to be closer to family. I miss being in a walkable city. I wouldn't have to take my car. and since our place was fully furnished during our marriage, it should save me some money. If I go this route, I know that my mom can't afford to live in this house alone. Due to her financial situation, the applications would most likely get denied. This would put a further strain on our already fragile relationship. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your conditions for moving in with your mother were essentially to be treated as an equal, a roommate. You don't just go behind your roommate's back and invite more people to live there without discussing it. Hell, even in family situations, everyone should be asked for their opinions before agreeing to move other people in. Your mom doesn't respect you is the key issue. Good luck in your new place. Comment 2. Not the idiot or no idiots here, in my opinion. You can't be expected to live your life for the benefit of others, and we all have requirements for the place we live. It doesn't sound like yours and your mother's are compatible, nor is the way you've communicated your requirements. She's forgotten them to pursue her own desires. Just tell her it doesn't work for work, with how loud and stuffy they are, and keep looking. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a wild couple of weeks, and I've got some updates that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So, after I found out about my mom's plan to sponsor those 2 teenage boys, I was pretty set on moving out. I couldn't deal with the chaos they brought into our lives last time they stayed with us. I mean, it was bad enough that my aunts and uncles would avoid visiting when they were around. I remember one summer, they broke my uncle's prized pool cue, and he didn't speak to my mom for months. It was a mess. I had a heart-to-heart with my dad about the whole situation. He's always been the level-headed one, and he agreed that my mom's decision was impulsive. He told me about the time he had to bail her out financially after she made a bad investment in a friend's business that went under. It was a pattern with her, always trying to help others without thinking of the consequences. I was packing up my things, ready to move into the apartment my dad found for me, when my mom came into my room. She was crying, saying that she didn't mean to put me in this position. She confessed that she felt lonely and thought that having the boys around would fill the void my dad left when they divorced. I felt for her, I really did, but I couldn't sacrifice my sanity for it. The confrontation with my mom was intense. She accused me of abandoning her like my dad did, which wasn't fair. I reminded her of the time I stayed up all night with her after her surgery, even though I had work the next day. I've always been there for her, but this was too much. Meanwhile, my STBX threw another curveball at me. He said he was reconsidering moving abroad and wanted to try and work things out. I was floored. After everything we'd been through, the cheating, the lies, the arguments, he thought we could just go back to how things were. I remember the night I found out about his affair. I was supposed to meet him for dinner, and when he didn't show, I went to his office. I found him there with his coworker, the one he told me not to worry about. It was a slap in the face. I told him that ship had sailed. I was done with his games. He didn't take it well. He started bringing up old memories, like our trip to Hawaii for our honeymoon, trying to manipulate me with nostalgia. But I remembered the bad times too, like when he forgot our anniversary because he was too busy with work, or so he said. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, my mom's health took a turn for the worse. She had to be hospitalized, and suddenly I was the one managing everything. I had to put my moving plans on hold to take care of her. It was during this time that I found out she had been hiding the severity of her condition from me. She needed a surgery that she had been putting off because she was scared. I was torn. I couldn't leave her in this state, but I also couldn't live with her if she went through with sponsoring those boys. I had a long talk with my dad about it, and he agreed to help me convince her to postpone the sponsorship until she was in better health. The boys' parents called me, begging me to talk my mom into letting them come. They didn't understand the strain it was putting on our family. I had to be firm with them, explaining that now was not the time. They were disappointed, but they said they would look into other options. As for my living situation, I'm still in limbo. My lease is up, and I'm staying with a friend while I figure things out. My mom's surgery is scheduled for next week, and I'm hoping that once she's on the mend, we can have a rational discussion about the future. Husband works himself to the bone while pregnant with our first child until he slips at a surprise baby shower, and now he's forced to rest as we bond over decorating the nursery together. So my 30-year-old husband is pregnant with our first child and is about 6 or so months along. A piece of information that is potentially relevant to our situation is that I make significantly more than my husband. My income makes up more than 85% of the household income, and we could very easily live off of just my paycheck. Now, that being said, I have never asked or implied or wanted my husband not to work. I want him to work as much as he wants to work. If that's 0 hours a week, 20 hours, 40 hours, or 80 hours, if it makes him happy, that's what I want him to do. As far as finances go, we have a joint account, all the money goes to, and once it hits that account, there is no concept of his money or my money, it is the household's, and we both have equal access, control, and discretion with it. I say all of this to try and lay out that from a purely financial point of view, my husband is not forced to work. It's also relevant that there isn't any more progression in his job path. I'm not saying that in a negative way, it's just potentially relevant that he's not pushing for a promotion. When we were trying to get pregnant, he mentioned that he wanted to taper his hours as he got farther into the pregnancy, which sounded great. About 3 months into the pregnancy, he started getting really fatigued because he was growing a whole other person. He asked me if I could take over some of his half of the chores. I said of course, because again, he's growing a person. That's impressive. Of course, I will take on more of the chores. At that point I mentioned, hey, if you are getting tired and fatigued, maybe you could start tapering your work hours. That was a mistake. Since then, he's been working extra shifts and staying late and doing extra hours. He's stressed and exhausted. He comes home from work, wolfs down whatever dinner I made as he's walking to bed, and then falls asleep till it's time for him to leave again. His time is 100% sleeping, working, or commuting between the two. Anytime I ask if he wants to cut back on hours or if he needs a break, he gets really upset and goes off about proving he can work and not being told what to do. Finally, last week, I said I don't think this is good for you and you should really let yourself have a break. I'm not trying to be controlling, but I'm genuinely worried the physical and mental stress he's been putting himself under for not much additional gain. And I will admit, selfishly, I miss my husband. I haven't had a meal or conversation longer than 6 min with him in months. I hear he's trying to prove he can, but it's hard to see him run himself into the ground if there's not a real need to. Am I the jerk for telling him it's time to take a break? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the jerk, but to navigate another idea instead of no man will tell me what to do, because that might not be it at all. When I was pregnant and my husband offered the same thing, similar dynamic financially, I told him no. Not because he was telling me what to do, but because it was my last chance at freedom. My baby was very much planned and wanted, but being able to make money felt good. I was still able to afford my own splurges, and I didn't want my husband to carry the whole load, even though I knew he could. I wanted to be useful, and not a strain on him. He gave me no reason to think that way. Comment 2. No jerks here, as you are just expressing your genuine concern. Whether you did it in the best way is subjective. Your wife feels bad, and she needs all the support you can give her, no matter what her decisions are. Right now, she's battling with more feelings and changes than a person can stomach in such a short time. Support her no matter what she does, as long as it's not life-threatening, and just be there for her. Who makes how much, and things like that, shouldn't matter at all. Now, for the update. Hey everyone. It's been a month since I last posted about my husband overworking himself during his pregnancy, and wow, things have taken some turns. I appreciate all the advice and support from last time, so I thought I'd give you all an update. So, after that last conversation where I suggested he take a break, things got a bit heated. My husband, let's call him Mark, has always been the type to push himself. Even back in college, he'd be the one to pull all-nighters before exams, insisting he didn't need help. It's one of the things I admire about him, but it can also be a bit much. Anyway, after our talk, Mark stormed out, and I was left feeling like I'd made things worse. But the next day, he came back from work early. I was shocked, to say the least. He sat me down and admitted that he'd been feeling overwhelmed, but didn't know how to stop. He was worried about not contributing enough, even though we'd agreed that our finances were solid. We had a long, honest talk about our expectations and fears. It turns out, Mark was worried that if he stopped working, he'd feel useless. He also confessed that he felt a bit jealous of my career success. I reassured him that his value to me and our family wasn't tied to his job or income. It was a bit of a breakthrough for us. The next week, Mark cut back his hours. He started coming home earlier, and we could actually have dinner together. It was like getting to know each other all over again. We'd talk about the baby, our days, and just random stuff. It was nice. But then there was a surprise baby shower at his work. His colleagues had noticed how hard he'd been pushing himself and wanted to show their support. Mark came home that day with a car full of baby stuff and a huge smile on his face. He was touched by the gesture, and it seemed to lift a weight off his shoulders. Things were looking up, but life always has its curveballs. 2 weeks ago, Mark slipped in the shower. It was one of those heart-stopping moments. I rushed him to the hospital, worried sick about him and the baby. Thankfully, they were both okay, but the doctor ordered Mark to take it easy for the rest of the pregnancy. That scare put things into perspective for both of us. Mark's been on leave from work since then, focusing on his health and getting ready for the baby. We've been attending online birthing classes together, and he's been nesting like there's no tomorrow. Our home has never been more organized. And just when I thought we'd settled into a calm routine, Mark surprised me again. He'd been secretly working on a project in his spare time. He revealed an entire baby room, painted and decorated with a space theme. He'd done everything himself, from the murals on the walls to the handcrafted mobile. It was incredible, and I couldn't believe he'd managed to do all that without me noticing. We've been spending our evenings in that room, just talking and imagining what life will be like with our little one. It's brought us closer than ever. So, that's where we are now. Mark's taking care of himself. We're both excited for the baby, and our relationship is stronger for all the ups and downs. He's napping right now, actually, while I'm typing this out. I can't wait to see him as a dad. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.